Hi there, and welcome on the journey to transform culture. I'm Steve, and I'll be your guide. Well, folks, hope you're having a great day and an even better week. Going to jump straight into a topic. You may have heard this phrase before. There's the little colorful side of it. If you have a military background, but in the effort to be even more professional, we won't go there. It is proper prior planning prevents poor performance. And if you think about it, it sounds pretty straightforward, right? Proper prior planning. Proper, the appropriate, prior, previous to whatever you're going to do. Planning, obviously, the act of planning that you need to do, right? The things you need to do and consider and put together. Doing all those things previous to your effort prevents, right? So this is a preventative uh, phraseology, right? It's basically a reminder that by doing this, I'm going to prevent myself from making mistakes, from going down the wrong path, et cetera, et cetera. And just to kind of hold on that is, as human beings, we've all made mistakes. We've all done or said or whatever, something that we're like, oh, geez, I wish I had planned for this better, brought more water on this hike, food, whatever. Um, I wish I'd have wore a jacket, when we're younger, typically. We think, oh, we're good, and then it rains, right? Or I didn't, in some cases, if you have real sensitive eyes like me, you didn't wear sunglasses or your sunglasses got lost or, that's obviously a tough deal. But not having backup plans in some instances, right? Whether it be personal situations, could be financial situations, and those are tough, right? Those almost never um, keep us from looking back and going, oh my gosh, I wish I had a planned better or prepared better for the potential for this thing to have occurred. But sometimes those things are the catalyst for you to learn the lesson, to be able to go on to say, you know what, I need to be more prepared in the future. To the point where, I remember, my dad's passed now, but back when I was younger, my dad, before we would go into town or whatever, because we have to drive a little ways, but he would have to get all this stuff and figure out this and that, and I was just ready to go, right? But but part of that was his proper prior planning prevents poor performance. Oh, get out my pocket knife, my wallet, obviously, the keys, the essentials, right? And then whatever else that might be, and it wasn't like he brought a suitcase of things, but just a few essentials, right? That he knew would probably be wise to have these things with me. And and you see this when people are getting ready or going to do something. If you go on a trip, I am the worst overpacker, and I've gotten better over time. But in general, I've been the worst overpacker. And then I go, I didn't even wear a fraction of these clothes I brought, but I was trying to be prepared. Am I going to be in a casual environment, in a formal environment? I mean, you kind of have to prepare appropriately for what you need to do, but sometimes you just can't cover all your bases, right? In this world that we live in now, things are so much more casual and forgiving in that regard that it makes it a lot easier to, uh, to pack lighter and do these things. But I use some of these simple things as examples. You can over plan and spend too much time over preparing too, right? And I've also been on that side of the fence in my life, obviously, if I've overpacked, right? But you can't consider not everything will be, you can't account for everything, right? You can prepare for all eventualities at your site and then lightning strikes, and you just don't know. Natural things happen all the time. Tornadoes, all these things. But you can prepare, and there's nothing that prevents you from preparing for those things. And you can really just do the best that you can do. But when it comes to your everyday work and your organizational flow and carrying out your plan and following the processes and procedures as you've laid out, right? Because we want to work the way we say we do, right? If we give attention to quality, if we have a quality statement and we and we have a vision, we have goals, and we have objectives to reach those goals, right? So with all that, it just means that we need to for us to be able to hit those things, hit those targets, we'll say, right? For us to hit those targets, we have to uh, properly plan and prepare, right? And if we do that, a lot of times we can mitigate some mistakes along the way, and that's a good thing. It's a really good thing. And what you find is when you do that for work and your organization, and some folks are more veteran and they've been more successful at this, but I know folks who are very professional folks who are just a soup sandwich when it comes to planning and preparing and organizing, right? They're pulling it together, but boy, it's like chaos on roller skates to see it all come together. And they and their entire team are so stressed to capacity and overwhelmed that the team can fracture from that being overwhelmed. Everything, this is what you see when everything is kind of an emergency, when everything is a DEFCON 1 scenario, right? This is what I'm talking about. And how do you know? You know you've done the proper prior planning if you feel too rushed. There might be a little like, got to stick to the plan, stay on task, stay on time, stay on your planning and your timing sequences, fine. But if you're feeling rushed, that's where the fireworks should go off. I remember when I flew as an instructor, boom operator, not only were we planning and preparing for ourselves to go fly, but we also had to plan and prepare for the eventualities of our students too, right? And there is the lesson planning, conducting the appropriate training and doing all these things too. So you have to be a forward thinker, right? And when you do these things, especially if you hit a lead supervisor, speaking to those folks for a second, if you hit a lead or supervisor, even department level management, you have to be quite, the proper prior planning prevents poor performance. I mean, you may as well just get a tattoo that says that and wear it, in how you conduct your business, not literally, but figuratively. But those folks, they have to be forward thinking. If they're forward thinking in their approach, then they'll be prepared, right? And you have to be able to see kind of what do I plan for the day to unfold? How do I expect it to unfold? And what are some potential eventualities or situations I potentially need to overcome along that journey? Sorry for the wiggle waggle on the phone, folks. And so this is where you need to buckle down. You need to buckle down and spend the time. And if you spend the time up front, then you find you don't waste as much time on the back end. And that eliminates that running around in emergency mode. So proper prior planning prevents poor performance, right? So poor performance. What are we doing? We're preventing poor performance. We're preventing ourselves from having results we don't want, right? When we talk about $7-ish trillion of waste laying on the ground for the American GDP for American businesses because they can't perform beyond 71%, without gimmickry and layoffs and so on and so forth, or jacking up prices and stuff, right? Raising your prices so that you hit a sales target does not mean you're effective or efficient. And that doesn't even mean you have good quality. It just means you had hit your sales targets or exceeded them. But we're not doing that. To kind of reel it back, we're not doing the proper prior planning if we're losing $7 trillion. If our performance is such that we have high turnover, and I've got a squad of people in my HR department always trying to recruit, or I've got to hire expensive hiring firms and all these extras that go into what? Overcoming my inability to be effective or efficient. Ineffective potentially as a leader. We just have to ask ourselves, am I effective or am I not? And look at ourselves seriously and break it down. And that goes right down the line. Is my staff, are they effective? Are they efficient? Right? And then right down the line, supervision, it can be department level, supervision, leads, and the broader team at large. Are we effective and efficient? And when we worm into it and we're truthful about it, right? When we're honest about it, no, we're not. And we're not. In the US, we're not. And it's hard because we do want to have good trade partners and we do want to have fair trade, but we also have to pick up our quality game and our efficiency game too, right? $7 trillion. Look at, hey, there's plenty of waste to cut in the government, plenty. But if we don't improve how we conduct business and work, it wouldn't matter if you can't cut your way to victory. You can't cut your way to success. At a certain point, you're cutting the low-hanging fruit, and at a certain point, you've got to go in and plant, right? You've got to go in and become more effective and efficient in how you conduct your businesses. And the waste that you're generating because of what? Lack of engagement, right? Poor organizational culture, which is made up of a numerous amount of things, which, by the way, my program addresses. And you need to plant. You need to plant and improve upon those things. When you improve upon those things, then you find your waste levels go down, right? And all of that 7 trillion, probably 80-90% of that right now is all human factors. It's all preventable, right? And we're not perfect, so we wouldn't expect 7 trillion is going to be just go away. But gosh, you should be able to get 5 trillion, maybe 55, close to 6 trillion. You can get that down. And how do you get that down? Improve upon our processes and how we execute work. Be more dedicated. Do the proper prior planning, right? The preventative things necessary to make sure we overcome. You can't be thinking, if you're working, I'll just use a Monday through Friday work scenario. If you are leaving on a Friday without a clue of what you're doing on Monday, that's a foul, right? If we're talking about standard weeks, if you have that schedule, it's a foul if you don't know what you're going to be doing on Monday. I mean, I would say as a department leader, supervisor, department leader, and on up, you should kind of know what you're going to be doing all the next week, right? At the minimum 3 days into the next week, the minimum. And you should have your plan drawn out so that you can accomplish those things and effectively execute and make sure that you get those things done. Because if you don't do the planning and if you don't know what you're going to be doing, guess what? That ripple effect is going to carry through right to the broader team at large. They're going to be waiting on you to get organized. They're going to be waiting on you. And then you should be having their plan, at least the structured, if you're working particular projects or orders or whatever, customer service oriented, events and so forth. All that stuff should be done. Now, some mid-level and above, you're probably hearing this going, yeah, it's true. But you have to thump yourself and go, where can I get better with this? It's not just saying, yeah, that's true. It's true. It's true that the sun comes up, but that doesn't mean I'm making any good use of that. You have got to press yourself. And so I challenge you to do that. I challenge you, no matter what your level of leadership, and whether you're just starting out in the work world or you've been in it for a while, or you're, in the later years of your, work experience and you're about to retire. Don't get short timers. They call it short timers disease. The challenge here is that so many people have short timers disease all the time. And what is short timers disease? That's acting like it's over before it's over. In organizations that have high turnover, a lot of the broader employees work as if it's short timers disease because they know that this organization doesn't retain people; they just throw them away, and because people do feel like that they're just in a throwaway culture. And how do we know that organizations are kind of treating people like throwaways? Just look at the statistics, folks. These are all nationally reported statistics. These aren't made up. These aren't just pulled out of the air. These are what people are reporting. And we know people don't report negative things in probably the most honest way. So you know the numbers are probably shallow. 7 trillion, it's probably more like 8, right? 71% effective, it's probably more like 62 to 65, right? So when we pull all the gimmicks out of the way. So this is why I say we've got to, check ourselves and go, proper prior planning prevents poor performance. Am I doing the proper prior planning? Some of that proper prior planning is also working on myself and my own ability to execute in my own approach to leading my team and coaching my team. If I'm not coaching my team and if I'm just kind of hands off, then things are just rolling off the rails probably for you, and you've got a high waste and you got issues. You got fires burning on multiple fronts and you're trying to put them out in constancy. And another thing is this reflex to, well, we can't find good employees. Well, you're going to attract what you are, right? Doesn't mean that you're not going to attract people who aren't good quality employees. And by good quality, I mean people who have good work ethic and show up on time and are consistent and step up and perform, right? And they're willing to be coached and they're willing to get involved with your program and how you have it laid out. But if your program's poorly laid out, your policy, processes, and procedures, your system is sideways or fragmented, well, guess what? That's exactly what you're going to have in your employees. Even if they're decent employees, there are going to be times that they're not going to be effective because why? Your system doesn't account for so many things. And your system could be very well letting down your entire team and your organization. But we get suckered into, well, these gimmicks, these firms, and this, and this, that, and I'm not saying all are bad, but I am saying, right, when you obfuscate responsibility to somebody else, look, in a perfect world, and I'm not knocking HR, they do some good work and they do more than just hire folks and fire folks, but they do a lot of that. They do some training and so forth, but think about it. In a perfect world, you wouldn't need an HR. And now some organizations have a squad of HR, right? And what is that saying? We're obfuscating our leadership responsibility to HR. We're obfuscating so much to HR. And we've all been there. We've all seen it, in one way, shape, or form. And same with safety. Well, we obfuscate our safety program to our safety person. Well, you know what? The site leader and all leadership and everybody involved in the organization is what? Responsible for safety. Okay. They're responsible to doing the work safely and at all times. I mean, it's just the bottom line. You might have a safety officer or safety person, leader, director, whatever. They're not responsible solely for your safety, right? That's obfuscation. So when you look at it, same thing with continuous improvement, which is fantastic. I totally get that. I mean, I buy into that. I've been that. I've, been there, done that. And it's kind of what I do now independently, right? But continuous improvement, just the same as safety, it's everyone's responsibility. So we all have to, check ourselves and go, am I doing the things that I need to do? Could I get better? Could I be more effective? Could I be more efficient? Could I engage better as a leader? Can I engage better and give good feedback as a team member? Am I giving it my best? Am I showing up on time? Am I being deliberate in how I execute work? And then of course you gotta enjoy the process. Look, you're never going to do well at something you're not enjoying. So if you're not enjoying the work and you're not aligned with the organization, why are you there? Honestly, if you're staying somewhere where you're not happy, and don't get me wrong, the organization isn't there to make you happy. But if the organization is toxic and they're not doing anything about their culture, yeah, I mean, who would argue with you walking away from that role? No one, not one single person would. Just use proper prior planning, right? So that you're being smart about it. But I would always say take the higher road first. Try to communicate and try to affect change in your organization. If you're somebody who's not a leader, but you feel like you're just getting whooped all over the place because these folks don't know where they're going and they're just, like a person swerving all over the road, that's how the organization is being led. Well, you couldn't do any worse by speaking up and speaking your mind, being professional and being deliberate and documenting, hey, this is what we should do. This is what I found. If we did this, this could solve the problem. Here you go. Sometimes leadership just needs a little hint, right? I would say a big hint at times, but one way or the other, if you have a good leader, guess what? They're going to listen to you anyway. And you don't have to wait till the water's boiling to say something. Just be open and be fearless and speak up and communicate. And you'll find you'll get results. I remember being in the Air Force as a young airman, and I spoke up about some things, and but it affected change. I was professional, and it affected change. And guess what? Then you become kind of a change agent. Then you find people coming to you saying, "Hey, how do we fix this, and how do we do that?" And you may find yourself, somewhat like myself, falling into a role where you become a bit of a change agent wherever you go. And that's good. It's a good thing to be that. It's a good thing to be a help to people, right? To serve your organization, and serving your team, serving the people around you. Because when you do that, you're serving culture. And on that note, remember, folks, hit that good domino 3 to 5 times a week to uplift, motivate, inspire, and just encourage folks. And when you do that, that fans out to other people in culture, not only in your organization, but in the culture at large. And not only are you having an impact on culture, but you're having an impact on your own life. And that's an amazing thing. And don't take it for granted. Okay, folks, hit like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, we'll talk to you later.